Whenever a war kicks off, all our attention goes straight to the front lines, right? You see the soldiers, the battles, the terrible human cost. But behind all those headlines, there's a whole other story playing out. It's one that isn't driven by flags or politics, but by cold, hard cash. Today, we're going to follow the money. And we're going to see that war, well, it's a business.
And that quote right there, it just nails it, doesn't it? The first group, the people fighting, we see them on the news every single night. But that second group, the people profiting, yeah, they're practically invisible.
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And it's exactly what we're here to figure out. So let's pull back the curtain on the huge, complicated, and unbelievably profitable business of modern war.
All right, so first things first. To really get who profits from all this, we have to look at it a little differently. We have to understand that war isn't just a political event. It's a massive economic machine.
It really is that simple. War costs a staggering amount of money, and that money doesn't just vanish into thin air. It has to go somewhere. Every bullet, every gallon of jet fuel, every contract signed, it's a transaction. And where there are transactions, there are always winners.
Here's a way to think about it that kind of makes it click. Picture war as a gigantic construction project, just in reverse. Instead of building things up, you're tearing them down. But look, it needs all the same stuff. You've got to have raw materials, like weapons and food. You need workers, like soldiers and private contractors. You need managers, the governments and commanders. And of course, you need investors. Every single part of that supply chain is a chance for someone to make money.
Okay, so let's start with the most obvious players in this whole game, the companies that actually build the tools of war.
You've definitely heard these names before. These are the absolute titans of the industry. We're talking about global giants making everything from Lockheed Martin's F-35 jets to Raytheon's Patriot missiles. They are the primary suppliers for pretty much every major military in the world.
So how does their business model actually work? Well, it's a really powerful three-step loop. First, they get these massive government contracts worth billions. Second, when a war breaks out, things get urgent. There's no time to negotiate prices, so costs can just skyrocket. And third, and this is the real genius of the business, every missile that's fired, every tank that's destroyed, it has to be replaced. That creates a perfect repeating cycle of demand.
And look, this isn't just a theory. This happens in the real world. Just weeks after the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Lockheed Martin's stock jumped over 20%. The market knew exactly where the money was about to start flowing.
The scale of this is just staggering. We're talking more than $60 billion in weapons sent from the US alone to Ukraine. That money goes straight to the American companies that make all that hardware. For them, a long, drawn-out conflict isn't just a tragedy on the news, it's a major driver of long-term business.
Now, the story doesn't end when the fighting is over. Oh no. After all that destruction comes the rebuilding. And this, my friends, is where a whole new group of people gets very, very rich.
There's this pattern that you see in almost every modern war. It's a really simple and kind of brutal cycle. The same countries that were involved in destroying a place are very often the first ones in line to get the massive contracts to rebuild it.
The Iraq War is the absolute textbook example of this. The timeline says it all. First, the invasion and the destruction of the country's infrastructure. Then, once the major combat dies down, what's next? A flood of multi-billion-dollar contracts to rebuild everything from power plants to sewer systems. And who got those contracts? Overwhelmingly, it was American companies.
Get your head around this number for a second. $7 billion. That's what just one company, Halliburton, was paid for its work in Iraq. Let's be perfectly clear, reconstruction isn't charity. It is the second, incredibly profitable phase of the war economy.
All right, so we've covered the official stuff. Now let's go a layer deeper, into the hidden world of the war economy. We're talking about underground markets, secret motives. This is where things get really interesting.
You know, wars are rarely just about ideology. There's a fascinating connection here. Look beneath almost any major conflict zone on a map, and you'll probably find a valuable natural resource, whether it's oil in Iraq and Libya or minerals in Ukraine and Congo. If you follow the resource map, you'll get a much better picture of the war map.
So, what happens when a government collapses in the middle of a war? Well, the official economy breaks down, and a massive shadow economy springs up to take its place. Suddenly, everything is for sale. Weapons, stolen humanitarian aid, fuel, even priceless artifacts. This illegal trade becomes a gold mine for armed groups and anyone else willing to operate outside the law. And then you have the private military contractors, or PMCs. Just look at this comparison. It's stunning. They can cost 5 to 10 times more than a regular soldier. But here's why they're so popular with governments. There's almost zero political accountability. When a contractor gets killed, it doesn't become a national headline. This makes them a politically convenient and extremely expensive tool for fighting modern wars.
Okay, so we've seen the big defense companies, the reconstruction business, the shadow economy, but why does any of this actually matter to you? How can you use this information in your own life?
Because understanding this system isn't about becoming cynical, it's about becoming realistic. It's like getting a new pair of glasses that let you see the world more clearly. It helps you look past the official stories and understand the deeper forces that are actually pulling the strings.
This right here is the real takeaway. With this knowledge, you can start asking much better questions. When you see a war dragging on forever, you can ask, who benefits from this continuing? When you hear about a foreign aid package, you can ask, who's actually getting those contracts? It empowers you to be a more critical thinker, and frankly, a much more informed person.
And that's really the bottom line. The war economy is a machine. It's fueled by money and conflict, and it works best when people aren't connecting the dots. But an informed person, someone like you who now sees the whole picture, that is the one thing that machine cannot easily control. So now you know. The only question left is, what are you going to do with this information?